Hey, everybody. The Bachelor kicked off this week on ABC, and everyone's very excited. And you know me, I've never said a bad word about The Bachelor. I think it's great, and I think we should spend more time not only watching it, but discussing it. If you watch ABC's The Bachelor, you should be listening to a companion podcast. It's what's done. You're not getting the most out of the show otherwise. The problem is most of the companion shows are absolute shit. The one you should be listening to is called Another Bachelor Podcast. That's the name, Another Bachelor Podcast. These guys are fucking hilarious. They're three cis white males with a lot of perspective on what girls are going through. One of the hosts, Nick, really funny story. He's from La Crosse, Wisconsin, which, funny enough, is where the Smiley Face Killer did a good amount of work, but sadly not to Nick. That's why he's producing podcasts. But it would be much better if he was at the bottom of a lake. Anyway, Nick was raised by his grandmother. Both of his parents were diagnosed schizophrenics, which is a bad roll of the dice, but he's a good kid. If Nick was a schizophrenic, he'd be funnier. Anyway, I'm kidding. I like Nick. I met Nick once. Another guy on there, Dillon, really funny, Jewish from Studio City, mom's from Queens, dad's a Trump-loving Vietnam vet from the backwoods of Virginia. By the way, all they're doing with this ad is describing how much better their parents' podcast would be. Give me the Trump-loving Vietnam vet and the schizos. A child of divorce, to state the obvious. And then there's a producer, Pat, from Lumberg, Massachusetts, a heroin-ravaged land. He was raised by his mother and stepfather, Jimmy Dell, who he has a contentious relationship with. Pat's 50 and he dyes his hair often. Every week, these guys take the piss out of one of the best shows on television, The Bachelor. Take out the latest episode breaking down the limo exits and shocking return of Hannah Brown. Subscribe to Another Bachelor Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and get ready to laugh your dick off. Nick produces this past weekend with Theo Von. Nick is a good guy. Nick has bought ads on the show, so we're plugging his Bachelor podcast. I have not listened to the podcast, but I'm going to. And Nick is like funny when you talk to him. So it's probably not the worst bet. Like if you listen to The Bachelor, it's not the worst. You know what I mean? Like, so if you watch The Bachelor religiously and like people like these Bachelor companion podcasts, I don't know why. I think it's because the empire's over and we're beginning our transition to AI, and humanity as a race has failed, and we're just sucking up the last little bit of resources on the planet before a stronger, more durable intelligence comes and takes us over. That's what I believe is happening. So I believe that in this weird interim time, The Bachelor is like fun. You know, it's like a fun way to kind of just like circle the drain of humanity, you know? So they're doing this Bachelor kickoff podcast, and I guess it's really good. You know, Nick's from La Crosse, Wisconsin. He's a podcast producer, and he's got his buddies with him. He's got Dillon. Why did they put in that he's Jewish? Really funny Jewish from Studio City. What's that about? Mom's from Queens. Dad's a Trump-loving Vietnam vet. So that's why they're giving you the backstory, guys. So it's not only that they're talking about The Bachelor, their comedic perspectives are informed by these very interesting lives. Like both of his parents were schizophrenics, and he was raised by his grandma. So that makes him hilarious. And then Pat's mom's from Queens, or not Pat, I'm sorry. Who else here? Dillon's mother's from Queens. So he's a fucking rip. This guy's a rip. His dad supports Trump. Like 65% of men in the country. But so it gives Dillon this unique perspective, like what's it like to be Jewish and live in Studio City? And then Pat is a 50-year-old who God only knows why he's doing this. He's probably on the edge of killing himself. Listen to the show so Pat doesn't kill himself. He was raised by his mother and stepfather. He's 50 and he dyes his hair off. 50 is an interesting age. It's not an age where like this is a cute, fun thing to do. He thinks this is going to like become a thing. I don't know. Hopefully Pat's independently wealthy. I'm skeptical. But it's Another Bachelor Podcast, and you can get it. Let's tell you where you can get it, folks, because you don't know how to fucking You don't know where podcasts are. How do you get a podcast nowadays? How would I even get it if I wanted to listen? So you can subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and get ready to laugh your dick off. Again, it's called Another Bachelor Podcast. Another Bachelor Podcast with Nick, whose parents are nuts, Dillon, who's Jewish, and Pat, who dyes his hair. And I'll tell you right now, it's a good lineup of people. Give it a shot. If you're into The Bachelor, there's some women listening to my program, 7 or 8. I'm kidding. There's more than that. And men like The Bachelor too. Men are idiots. The point is this: if you watch The Bachelor, this is a good thing to check out. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Hey, everybody. It's Another Bachelor Podcast. It's 2020, and there's a lot going on. We're on the brink of World War II. Australia's engulfed in flames. See, these kids have tried to write a ad in my voice for the Bachelor Podcast that we talk about. What they don't realize is that I'm a comic genius, and they are not. So it would be like me writing a workout plan for a professional athlete. Okay, but I'll read it anyway. Okay, because I'm sure that they're the real geniuses. It's just because of some mistake, I'm the one that people care about. Anyway, let's read the copy. You know, it's just the way it worked out. We're just as funny as that guy. It just shook out the wrong way. There's an impeachment trial coming up, but the world is being sucked off its mana. Good boy. But there's nothing more important going on right now than season 24 of ABC's The Bachelor. If you're listening to my podcast, you're obviously a fan of that program. You're probably tuning in every week, but you're wasting your fucking time if you're not listening to a Bachelor Companion podcast. The best one out there, we've talked about it before, is Another Bachelor Podcast, featuring Nick with schizophrenic parents who produces the Dillon show, Dillon, who's Jewish, and Pat, who's an older man. After hearing the ad read I did last week, Pat, as I assumed he might in the near future, attempted to take his own life. While he is independently wealthy with a child on the way, my words called into question his reason for doing Another Bachelor Podcast. After a few contemplative glasses of Pinot Grigio, they're too wordy, these kids. He naturally started asking more dangerous and dark questions of himself. What's the point of being a father if you know you'll fail? What's the point of doing anything really? What's the point of even sticking around? He was found in a bathtub by his podcast buddies who resuscitated him with the news that the ad read I did last week did in fact move the numbers. He's now in a better place, mentally not in heaven. So tune in. Here's what I'll say about these kids. They're really giving it a shot. Give it a shot if you watch The Bachelor and you want a companion podcast. If you watch The Bachelor, everyone listens to a podcast. Whether it's Jared Freed or Girls Gotta Eat or fucking, Jewish women talk about the gash. Whatever it is, it's, rich white Jewish women talk about the gash, which is the biggest type of podcasting right now. If you are a woman living in a city who doesn't celebrate Christmas and you want to talk about flicking your bean, you are making $1 trillion a year. And so I'm supporting these three white fucks for getting involved in this. 3 white men, okay? I wish they were good looking, but I've seen one of them and it ain't great. Tune in every week to Another Bachelor Podcast on iTunes, YouTube, and Spotify. He's not deformed, Nick, right? He's not that bad looking. I wouldn't say fine, but remember, everyone, escapism is the only thing that matters right now. I'm kidding, Nick. We're kidding. It's comedy. Relax. I'm sure you'll find out. Does he have a girlfriend? You'll find when, Nick, you're making good money, you'll find a nice lady, and you guys can go live out in the valley and stare, and you could record each other. There is nothing you can do to prevent us from annihilation. The only thing you can do is find ways to cope, and I can't think of a better way than listening to Another Bachelor Podcast, other than their spin-off recapping. But see, I want to talk about, here's the thing about Below Deck. I would come on that show and talk about Below Deck with you guys, so they have another spin-off show recapping Bravo's hit series Below Deck, another Below Deck podcast also available. Here's the thing. I'm kind of interested in talking about Below Deck, and I am a superior comedian and broadcaster to you, and it's not even close. Like, we're not even in the same realm of anything. Like, I shouldn't even know. We should never have even met each other. We should never have been in the same room. Bitch, I've been doing this since I'm 6 years old, okay? Regaling crowds all across the country with great fucking theatrical stage presence. I had a great voice then, and I could tap dance. So the point is, you should only know me through the press. But the fact is, I will come on your Below Deck shitty podcast because that show fascinates me because I like to watch it. I don't know why. I just leave it on for hours at a time and I just kind of stare at it. I don't care about anybody on it or if the boat crashes or anything. But there's something about it where I don't know. It just kind of interests me. So I'd be willing to come on that. If you want me to come on, you have an open invitation to invite me on through Ben. Don't speak to me directly. Don't DM me directly. You out of your fucking mind. But through my people, contact me. Try to get in contact with me. Okay? Or have me back on Theo's show. I know he's interviewing Tommy Lahren. Okay? I don't know who's he got next week. Hitler? Have me on the program again, please. Thank you. I know we did it last time with Logan Paul. This time we'll do it with a big TikTok star. How about this time we do it with Little Huddy? Chase Hudson. He is Little Huddy. He owns the Hype House. Kid's fucking figured it out. He's got 9 million followers. He's dating Charlie D'Amelio, who's fucking the biggest TikTok person. But you know what? I think TikTok's missing fat Irish guys who think that immigration is a legitimate issue. That's what TikTok's missing. But it'll be there in a few years. Your racist aunt is joining TikTok, so don't worry about it. Or get famous while you can, because your racist aunt is joining TikTok. This has nothing to do with the ad anymore. Just watch the Bachelor podcast. Give these kids a chance. Maybe they're funny. And I'm sure they got a lot to say about me. Maybe like, then Tim said he made fun of us. And Dillon, whose parents are Jewish, I don't know why they threw that in, because we're supposed to think that he's struggling. Dillon the Jew. I can't believe it. Good for you, Dillon. All right, folks. Good luck. God bless. Goodbye. Folks, you know me. I always try to put you on to cool stuff. It's part of what I do here on the show. It's not all just comedy and doom and gloom. It's, an advice podcast for many of you. I give good advice, but I also, put you on to things that you might like. One of those things is a podcast. It's called Another Bachelor Podcast. I shit on these guys as a joke, and I know that listen, they're doing a podcast about The Bachelor. A lot of people do it, and a lot of people are successful at it. Now, if you're a fan of The Bachelor and you want to listen to a companion podcast, go check their podcast out. I think it's well worth checking out. I'm going to be a guest on their podcast about Below Deck, because I do have an interest in talking about Below Deck. I don't have an interest in talking about The Bachelor. I don't know why I find Below Deck so interesting. It's just about people who charter yachts, whatever. But it's interesting. And I think they're okay with me shitting on them as a joke. I mean, one of them might was upset about it, I think, or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who any of these people are. I will never meet these people in my life. Like, I will never meet them ever. Like, if I'm in a room with these people, it's because I'm meeting someone else that they are somehow near. But like, I would never be in the same, like, unless like we're in an airport, like we'd be in an airport and we'd bump into each other, but there would be no like meaningful interaction between me and them. And that's not a knock and that's not an insult. The only difference between me and them would be that I'm insanely talented. And I spend time with other insanely talented people. That's it. There's no like, everyone's a human being. I respect everybody, but that is the differential. That's it. Nothing else, by the way. I mean, we're carbon-based life forms. I mean, the whole thing. But I would give the Bachelor podcast a shot, because why not? Why not if you enjoy The Bachelor?
Is this a show where they have to survive in the woods naked?
No, that's Naked and Afraid.
Okay, I've seen that one.
The Bachelor is about a bunch of women who compete for the affections of one man.
Can I get on this?
I think it would be great if you were... They should do a Bachelor Skid Row.
Yeah.
Where you are the Bachelor. And then all the women still choose to go back to Skid Row.
A lot of those women aren't unattractive.
What?
The women in Skid Row.
They weren't bad at all. They weren't bad at all. I could see you dating them too.
What, do I give them a rose?
Yes, you give them a rose. Here's the deal. What's the point of being a father if you know you'll fail? What's the point of doing anything, really? What's the point of even sticking around? This is about the guy, I guess, who tried to kill himself after I talked about him. He was found in a bathtub by his podcast buddies who resuscitated him with the news that the ad read I did last week did in fact move the numbers. So people are checking it out. So tune in every week to Another Bachelor Podcast on iTunes, YouTube, and Spotify. Remember, everyone, escapism is the only thing that matters right now. There's nothing you can do to prevent us from annihilation. The only other thing you can do is find ways to cope. So listen to Another Bachelor Podcast or their spin-off show recapping Bravo's hit series Below Deck. Another Below Deck podcast, and also available where you get your podcasts. I mean, I go check it out. I wish these guys the best. I mean, here's what it is. Here's what it really is. No one respects you. Like, that's what it is. If you're a producer of a podcast, unless you're Jamie Vernon, no one respects you. That's what it is. It's just you're replaceable. it's not, I'm glad you do your job well, but it's not really, it's just not a thing. Like, it's not.
My plumber is part-time, does my taxes too.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. You know? I like specialization, where someone specializes in something. Like if someone came up to me and goes, in a nice restaurant, they go, you know who's cooking in the back? Bruce Springsteen. I'd go, why? Why is Bruce Springsteen making our dinner? But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it would be great.
It's midnight in America. Here's your quesadilla.
Yeah, right. I don't know. So these podcast producers right now, they're getting very chatty.
Yeah.
They're getting very chatty because they're sick of being behind the scenes.
Well, it looks so
because
easy.
they think it's a big mistake.
Yeah.
They think it's a big mistake that they sit behind the scenes and other people don't. They all think it's a cruel twist of fate, and it's just that they should be, Theo Von should be producing your podcast. That's what these guys think. And when they put their head on the pillow in their manic minds, they think that they are the reason that Theo is funny. They think they're doing it.
This is the result of Occupy Wall Street.
Your job is going to be done by AI last week. So I'm glad so here's reality. And these are sweet kids. And I don't want anyone to think this is negative. I'm not trying to be negative now. I'm just trying to be. And I appreciate, because I would, if you listen to The Bachelor, watch Another Bachelor podcast.
Do I need to listen to The Bachelor? Because I just enjoy the podcast?
Shut up. Just listen to the fucking podcast, okay? And I listen, I'm not trying to be a dick to anybody because I love everyone. I think everyone's worthy of at least life. You know what I mean? At least be here on Earth. But like, just make it good. Like, I hope it's a great podcast. And I'm sure it's not that bad.
Right.
I'm sure it's not that bad. But, like, that's what it is. It's like the show lasts for a certain amount of time, then it's over. It's a fun podcast, right? So it's just fun. It's nice that they're also doing Below Deck. So they're expanding. They're doing, like, a bunch of different things, you know? I'm not trying to shit on what they're doing, by the way. I'm not trying to shit on what they're doing. Right. I respect that people are out there hustling. Just, I think you get it, you know? Just understand what it is. So don't be offended when there's people that listen to the ad that are offended. Like, one of the guys got offended. First of all, if you're offended by anything I say, why are you doing anything comedically? So don't be offended by what I say. If you're offended by what I say, don't do the ad. I don't care. It means nothing to me. Less than, I can't explain to you how little this means to me to do. Genuinely less than nothing. But don't be offended by it, because I hope people do genuinely check out your show. But this isn't real. It's not real. So I just want you, when you go to bed every night, to know that it's not a real thing you're doing. And I don't mean the show isn't real. Your show is real. I mean your life. Your existence on planet Earth isn't real. It's not real. You're an avatar. You're an idea. You're an avatar. You're a shadow that's reflected off a lake in the moonlight. But that being said, I would check out the show. I'm going to appear on their Below Deck podcast, potentially not now after this ad. But so listen, it's called Another Bachelor Podcast. And their spin-off show, They're spinning off.
If you like
If you like this, you'll love that. The spin-off show is called Below Deck. It's another Below Deck podcast.
Can I do a podcast about like fidget spinners, maybe?
Yeah, they're done now. So that's it. I don't want to listen again. I love everybody. I hope everybody loves me. It's all in good fun. It's all in good humor. We're all kidding around. So don't be offended. But to hear that anyone's offended by anything I said in an ad read is absurd to me. And it's really crazy, because I called the kid who has me doing these reads, and he wasn't offended, but he's like, yeah, one of the guys was like a little offended. And it's like, well, what do you think it is?
This is my dream.
You're doing a Bachelor recap podcast, and you're advertising on another podcast, and you're offended about what the guy said. Like, what do you think you're doing? What world are you living in where none of it's real? What we're doing isn't real. It's not real. If my fucking show, which is great and listened to by people, isn't real, if Hollywood isn't real, if the country isn't real, none of it's real. It's a simulation. If all of it isn't real, how in God's name is your Bachelor Recap podcast real? How are you getting upset about it? Think to yourself that. Your metadata on a fucking alien's iPhone, dummy. Whew. That's all I'm saying. It's more metaphysical. I'm not going at you, you simpleton. I'm not going at you. What I'm saying is that just enjoy. Just enjoy that you're in a unique period in history. In 5 years, you're not going to be making $1 trillion. It's over soon. You're at the end of this now. It's coming to an end. Podcasting is going to end soon. I don't know when it is, but it's going to end. So just enjoy what it is while it is. Don't get angry about what I say. None of it matters. It's all fun. None of it's real. It's not real. The Below Desk spin-off podcast where you sit down and what do we do? Which episode did we cover last week? Did we cover 3 or 4? Shut up. Just enjoy it. Because one day you're going to be dead and no one is going to care. Do you know what I mean? No one is going to care about your death. Nobody. No one will remember you. No one will speak kindly of you. No one will value any of your achievements or accomplishments. You'll just be, you know how I know that? Because when I went to the Spokane Comedy Club, there were 4 hot dogs on the menu, and they were the Carlin, the Pryor, the Rivers, the whatever. And these are the greatest comics that ever lived, and they just became hot dogs. Okay? And you guys are almost as talented as Pryor. Okay? But not. But you're almost there. So just don't be upset. That's all I'm saying. It's a fun ad. You can keep running them if you want. I hope people check out the podcast. If you don't want to run them, that's fine too. If I ever see you in person, obviously we'll never speak. I'm kidding. Again. No, I don't like what he said. I don't like what he said about my Bachelor podcast. I don't like it. It makes me upset. How am I going to go home to my wife and kids that I'm feeding off my Bachelor podcast when this guy's going to shit on it? You know what happened? You know what Tim Dillon did, that fat faggot? We got a Bachelor podcast and we advertise on a show. You know what this fat faggot did? He shit on it, trying to make it like it was stupid or something. Can you believe it? Yeah, no, he didn't say nothing about that Below Deck podcast. He kind of likes that one, but he didn't like all that. So just, again, calm down. Check it out. It's another Bachelor podcast and another Below Deck podcast. And who are the 3 guys again? It's Nick, Dillon, and Pat. Nick, Dillon, and Pat. I think Dillon was the one who got mad. I don't think Pat got mad. He's the older guy, and Nick didn't get mad, but I think Dillon got mad. I don't know who is Dillon. Look it up.
Roof?
Find him. It's not Dillon Roof. Dillon Roof has a Wikipedia. So let's apologize to Dillon. Who's it?
I'm looking it up. Isn't he the guy that worked at Corolla with them?
Oh,
Inside baseball over here.
Oh boy.
Well, didn't we meet him when we went to Corolla? Isn't it that guy? Dylan Pete Wren? Is that him?
I have no idea. Edit his name out.
Okay, yeah, I'll bleep that out.
name
Yeah.
Because God only knows what our people.
Yeah, it's Dylan Wren, but I'll bleep that out.
Yeah, Dillon.
I mean, they can look it up. It's on the podcast bio, but
We don't want to make it easy. Dillon,
Here's his address.
We're kidding around, Dillon. You know, it's a joke. It's you doing a Bachelor podcast. Can I see him? There's no photos of him at all.
I mean, this is his Twitter.
That's him, I think.
Right here?
Yeah, he's a Jew, huh? That guy's a real Jew. Guy's a real big Jew face. That's what it is. You could call me a Mick face. That guy's got a Jew fucking face. You see that from coming from a mile away. You see that.
We're 16 minutes into this read.
We're trying to have fun, Dillon. Dillon, your only chance of getting fucking listeners is this. Are you fucking high? What, do you want crack? Who gives a shit about your Bachelor podcast? Unless we make it fucking interesting. Okay? You know? You're not cleaning Adam Carolla's toilets because you're a genius.
Are there a lot of Bachelor? Because it's another Bachelor podcast, so you assume there's a plethora of these.
Yeah, there's ones that are doing very good. I'll tell you how good they're doing. They don't advertise on my show. They don't want a 20-minute harangue. But I'm serious. I support art and artists. And that's what we do here. So if you can enjoy that and you can be playful and have fun with it, but if you're going to be serious about it, let's just not do it. And I don't care about the money and I don't care about anything. And I clearly don't. I've pissed off, and said a lot crazier shit about a lot more people that can help me out than this fucking nonsense. So let's just come to fucking reality and understand that we're having a lot of fun with this. You know what I mean? This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you listeners. We're trying to get me listeners. Just don't be angry. This isn't like it's not the Manhattan Project.
It's a feud now, though. You're starting a podcast feud. You're in a feud with the Another Bachelor Podcast guys.
Oh boy, here we go. Here it is. I mean, it's not a feud. I listen. I like Nick. He's a person on Earth. That I don't want him to like die. 'Cause I don't want anyone to die. Some people should die.
Come on.
So that's where we're at with this. We want you to check out Another Bachelor Podcast with Dillon, the older guy, because I nailed them when I did the first read. I kind of nailed them. One guy, and then there's the other guy. There's Dillon's the guy that takes it way too seriously. And then Nick just probably has fun with it. And Dillon's just probably like taking it way too serious. And it's just like, dude.
Let me get through the recap first. Then we'll make jokes.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, you don't know how to do it. If it's not done right, no one's going to listen. What are you imagining? A world where you tell your grandchild, you go, I had a Bachelor podcast. I had a Bachelor. Well, I wouldn't be Italian. With Jew, it's like, I had a Bachelor. I'm trying to get Jewy. I had a Bachelor podcast. That's how I made my money. My grandfather worked at the Diamond District. I had a podcast about a show called Below Deck.
When you saw The Bachelor making out with Tina in the jacuzzi, how do you deconstruct that?
Oh, boy. Do you think we've done enough time for this?
We're at 20 minutes now.
I mean, you get what you pay for, don't you, boys? You get what you pay for. I'm kidding about cleaning Adam Carolla's toilets. I'm sure you didn't do that. Again, enough. Guys.
Someone's got to do that.
No, you did do it, probably, but it's not my business.
What's he going to do it himself?
So check out Another Bachelor Podcast and Another Below Deck Podcast. Thank you.